This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook. I have an incredible doctor, Dr. Brian Lima, renowned cardiac surgeon and best-selling author of Heart to Beat. No surprise, right with that cardiac theme. Welcome to the Playbook, Brian.
Thank you so much, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm looking through all the different successes that you've had, but what really intrigues me more is how you got there. I want to start with your parents. I grew up with a single mom who drove me. She had a philosophy that you may be familiar with. It was called the doctor, lawyer, or failure philosophy, which drove
slightly.
My siblings to the Ivy Leagues and beyond. The fetus wasn't fully developed till after graduate school. But give me a little bit of context. I know you were born to some Cuban immigrants, and everyone thinks that's a tragedy in some respects, but it also is a lot of pressure. Let's talk about how you were raised by your parents.
So really, I knew from a very early age that my parents had to sacrifice a lot to come to this country. They didn't speak the language, and my dad had to work in a factory that provided pigment for paint. So it was, ingesting fumes, terrible hours. I saw him at odd times of the day because he would do overtime shifts all the time. And so it certainly wasn't, a house, budding with, professional role models or anything like that. But what I did have as an example to emulate was the hard work ethic. And that's what my mom was more just nurturing and, everything is great, kind of that touchy feely kind of thing. But my dad was more of the, look, you are what you make of this life. And if you put in the work, it doesn't matter what talent you lack, you can make up for it with hard work. So he really hammered that into me. And that's really what gave me the confidence to shoot for the stars. Basically, it was that confidence that you can achieve really anything that anybody else has, so long as you match that effort with work and don't give up.
Yeah. And I think that is the formula, the common denominator, kind of the desire that you must be what you can be, but it's not going to be given to you. And you had no illusions that things were going to be given to you from a very young age. Now, your siblings, what role did they play? Were they under the similar perspective you were, or a lot of times they go in a different direction?
So my siblings were born in Cuba, so they kind of were already, and they were much older. I was sort of, I like to say, an accident.
Yeah, I hate to say this publicly, but my youngest son is the best mistake I've ever made.
Exactly. So they were kind of already, 16, 13 years older than I was, and had, unfortunately, even more of a tough road because they came here, not knowing the language and having to overcome some of that. But what I learned from them was they were supportive, and they had their own challenges and their own, unfortunately, some health tragedies as well that they each had to kind of contend with that I discuss a little bit in the book. But they were supportive, and I did things that no one else had done in the whole family. This idea of, for example, leaving home to go to college. They didn't understand what an Ivy League school was. Why did I have to leave home? Why couldn't I just go to the local college like my brother did or my cousins? They didn't understand what that meant. But they were supportive. My parents were, look, if you think this is a good idea, and if you get a full ride, which, we certainly can't pay for it, then have at it. And so they gave me that license to chase my dreams. So.
And you did take advantage of that license and graduated valedictorian from your high school. But before you went to high school, your career path was, I had a brother, my oldest brother, since he was 5, he wanted to be a doctor. It was just, for whatever reason, quantum within his nature. That's what he loved. Now, I think you wanted to become a cardiologist at a very young age for a very certain reason. When you were 10, your father survived a heart attack. What type of a transition was that for you? And give me a little bit of your mindset when you're just 10 years old and here you are, your dad's probably a little bit older, you have older siblings, and you're here in this country, and your father at 10 years old all of a sudden is faced with an entirely new trajectory.
or my dad was everything. He was the pillar of our family. And so it was the first time I remember really, really being, afraid, and seeing my mother be really fearful. Like, it was serious. Like, we had not experienced anything like that. And it was so surreal. It's like we took him for granted in that, everything's gonna be fine. But the fact that he might not make it, that just, I remember, was a jolt for me. Like, wow, like that fear, me going to the hospital, seeing him in the hospital, just, I never wanted to feel like that, meaning I wanted to be empowered to be able to help others go through that, or knowing what that fear was like, being able to empathize with other people to help them through those difficult scenarios. But it was a really pivotal moment for me, because I was kind of happy-go-lucky and then all of a sudden this major event occurs that just throws your whole world upside down.
And you know what's interesting? I'm looking through your educational career, from attending Cornell, graduating and majoring in chemistry, magna cum laude at Cornell, which is no joke, winning the National Scholar Award, but then going on to Duke for med school, obviously winning a fellowship award there. You're completing your residency as well. It's interesting. Then you did your heart surgery training at Cleveland Clinic, which is probably the top in the country in thoracic and cardiovascular surgery. At any point, or at which point, were you most afraid that you weren't going to be capable of competing? Or was that inherent, belief just dispelled when you graduated from high school as a valedictorian? Or was there ever one step of the way where you're like, whoa, I'm at Cornell, or I'm at Duke, or I'm at the Cleveland Clinic. Am I going to be able to fit in? I'm just an immigrant son.
I have to admit, that imposter syndrome haunted me throughout. And occasionally, full disclosure, it still creeps into my mindset. And I've just gotten so disciplined over the years of kind of just kicking it out, because it was almost like I felt like I always had one foot on a banana peel. And I was always, I had to give everything I had, because I felt outgunned. I felt like I was not the smartest kid, that I didn't have the highest IQ, that I had to work harder than my classmates in med school or before that or after that. And so in essence, I kind of used that fear or that imposter syndrome to empower myself, to motivate me to kind of feel better about it, to get that confidence. And it's not easy. You do have those moments of weakness where you really doubt yourself. And you kind of really have to just muster the will to kind of power through those moments. And then those little victories, you just have to seize, however small they are. You just kind of have to take it as okay, that's a good sign. I can do this. And then you start getting that confidence along the way.
Yeah, no doubt. I've had that same imposter syndrome throughout multiple times in my career. And still, even today, I love to illuminate with humility that sometimes I just wonder, how am I actually doing what I'm doing? And who is going to find out that I am trying to empower over a billion people just to be happy? Now, coming from, same type of background that you have with work ethic, I used to tell people, never as talented as anybody, always, but the one I can outwork you. But there was times in my life where early on, I got a message about, I didn't give my best. In fact, for my own children, I have 4. I tell them all the time, I only need 3 things from you. You got to do your best. You got to learn lessons and have fun. Those are only 3. If you do your best, you learn lessons and you have fun, or whatever you want to do, I'm cool with it. Have you ever found yourself in a situation that you didn't do your best, and what effect did that have on you?
It's, there are definitely those weak moments where you whether it's sleep deprivation, residency, I like to call, is like an exercise in prolonged sleep deprivation. It's making sure that, whether it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., you can still, bring it, right? So sometimes it's just being human, like you just, but one vivid moment that I always talk about that was pivotal for me was my 8th grade graduation, where the award ceremony. And my best friend, also, kid of immigrants, won everything. And I'm sitting there, totally embarrassed, like, wow, like, you just don't think these moments mean much, or, you never think of how your lack of effort is going to be aired out for public consumption, and it was such a humiliating feeling because I knew I could have done better. I was like, that's it. No matter what, at least I won't let that be the reason why I don't, do great things. It will never be because I didn't put in my best effort.
And, there's another pressure. And, I wonder how pressure affects you, but I joke around. I have a cousin, Dr. Eric Adler in San Diego, who's in the heart transplant side of things. You maybe know Eric. And I tell him all the time because he looks at me and he's like, how do you get paid for what you do? And he goes, and I'm a heart surgeon, right? And I always joke around, well, it's not heart surgery, but everyone has their spot. What types of, pressures are there in this kind of mini miracle world of heart transplant? And, you literally at times hold somebody's life in your hand. I say within the context of entrepreneurship, your bank account or, staying in business is related to your bank account. If you don't have any money, your heartbeat stops. Literally the only thing that determines whether you're alive or not is when your heart is beating or not. And you've held that in your hand. What's significant does that have that you're literally every day in that spot of being a heart specialist? You hold people's lives in your hands.
I think it's, I look at it as almost a binomial thing, 0 or 1. Either you completely thrive and live off of that, just that excitement of being able to do that, feeling that the privilege that you're entrusted with people's lives to do that. And that's what motivates you. It's scary. It's definitely one of those things that with time, like everything else, believe it or not, it gets better. You get more confident. You know that there's risks. There's things that are going to really be outside of your scope of influence that may cause a negative outcome, but you just do what you can and you do it as the best way possible. And you have that confidence that, 99 times out of 100, when I do my best and I have perfect technique and I make the best clinical judgment that I can, the outcome is great. And you just have to know that if something doesn't go the right way, that you have to be at peace with the fact that you did what you could. And just, there are some cases where you're just not going to be able to save everyone. Being able to face the family and all of that afterwards is tough. I do my best to set expectations with families. I go over the risks. I say, look, this can happen, that can happen. I'll be prepared for these different contingencies should they come up. I always have a plan for the worst case scenario, so it doesn't surprise me. But even then, sometimes it's just a situation that you can't overcome, but that doesn't stop you from wanting to save that next person or learning from that so that you can do a better job the next time you encounter something like that.
I'm talking to you and I'm thinking to myself, I haven't felt this way since I represented a kid named Myron Roll, who won the Rhodes Scholarship. He's a brain surgeon now. You may know Myron as well from your neck of the woods. And I sat there when he was, only 21 and graduating Florida State, asking him, if anything should happen, can I just adopt you? This is before I had my son. I'm thinking, can I just adopt you? This would work out for me. Top doctor of the year, over 80 articles published in journals and obviously from numerous conferences around the world. And I'm looking at everything that you've accomplished literally. And I have a 10-year-old son thinking, gosh, I should have Dr. Brian Lima here mentor my son. Because whatever your parents did, I thought my mom was incredible with, 6 kids in the Ivy Leagues and magna and summa cum laude. But wow, this is impressive. But one thing that comes to mind as I'm reading through every exceptional achievement is I never understood. I've written, several books myself. With everything going on, why would you write a book, and what was the meaning of the book to you?
The book was something that started off as just a collection of ideas that came to me as I was finally back in civilian life out of training, where I finally joined I was adulting. I had a real job. I had some control.
That comes about at 40 at your profession,
35, right? Yeah, close, right?
Right.
And so here I am.
I already made over $100 million and lost it by the time you graduated.
So, I mean, seriously, I finally, here I am in the adult workforce. I kind of start to look around because for really the better part of my 20s, half of my 30s, I'm living in a hospital, right? And working in that environment just with the blinders on. And I kind of got out and I felt like, I don't know, I just had this sense of people really, social media was really taking off. I kind of had, things were topsy-turvy. People were looking for the wrong role models now. It didn't matter, people would care more about how many likes you have on social media versus, how many degrees you have on your wall. Like that was more important. Like it just seemed like the world had changed, I guess. And I had missed that, and I felt like I needed to get the word out there and almost, take it upon myself to help set the record straight. Like, no, there is still something to say about delayed gratification. It's not all about the quick fix, the overnight success, so that's where it started. And then it just snowballed from there. And finally, after literally 4 or 5 years, it culminated in me saying, okay, fine, I got to put this into some sort of book and get this out there. And that's how it all came about. But it was like this almost inescapable sense that I have to share this, which is weird. It wasn't part of the plan, honestly, originally.
A true calling to a true genius. Yeah. Last question real quick. I always say, especially during the pandemic, two of the things when things are changing at an accelerated pace, when you feel uncertainty, anxiety, fear, etc., that you have to look within. And the two things that I always say that we have control of to look upon are, number one, our mindset, and then two, our heart set. And you have a very interesting perspective on the importance and understanding of the heart that goes beyond the physical realm. And you and I share these types of interests as well. So I was hoping you could share with all of us, coming from someone who's an expert at the heart and the heart set, what that understanding of the heart for you is. So
that question about how did the whole book come together came when I was able to figure out a unifying concept, a unifying theme, and it was the heart way. And it was basically the idea of, you do a heart transplant, there's occasions where, and this I caught on film, that you taking the old heart out and for whatever reason, it just still beats in your hand. Like it's out of the body, it's still beating, almost as if like, wait a minute, I'm not ready to give up, The heart only knows how to do one thing, and that's beat. And if we acted more and hesitated less, no matter what's going on, mayhem, chaos, uncertainty, disappointment, setback, we often spin our wheels, right? And we kind of just are perseverating on it. We don't take action. The heart just acts. It just moves. It beats. And if we did that, we would be so much more successful, so much more productive. But on the physical health side, when you don't take care of your heart, when you have, let's say, arrhythmias or whatever it is, and the heart's not beating the way it should or as strong as it should because you didn't take care of it, same thing happens in our metaphysical lives, right? So when we don't push ourselves and when we don't take care of ourselves, we tend to shy away from tough situations. We become not as successful. We can't persevere as much. We lose our grit. And that's sort of the parallels that I draw with the heart throughout the book.
Yeah, that's a must read. Heart to Beat, a cardiac surgeon's inspiring story of success and overcoming adversity the heart way, which is much more than just the physical, but even the quantum and the metaphysical way of understanding how it integrates within us. And I think one of the key messages that I learned that's so important is if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. And I think you learned that at the age of 10 from your hero, your father, and had decided to make a difference and impact to make sure that people do take care of the most important part of us, which is that source, the heart, and utilizing it, all of its magnificent functionality Dr. Brian Lima, renowned cardiac surgeon and best-selling author of the must-buy Heart to Beat. Thank you for joining me, Dave Meltzer, here on Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.